things, modern things can be sprinkled in with the old, which is kind of cool. So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of cameos. I like cameo appearances in movies.
Me too. That's the only reason I like the new Ghostbusters movie was the cameos. Also coming out was they also announced an Incredibles 2. So the Incredibles 2 is reminding the audience that the Incredibles family house blew up at the end of the original film. And so now obviously they're going to have a new house. And it says something about Bob falls asleep with Jack in his arms, allowing the baby to escape. When he hears a mysterious sound heading into battle with a raccoon, he chases the creature while cycling through some of his new abilities, phasing through the glass door, flame erupting from his body, shooting lasers out his eyes, multiplying, all before Bob wakes and shoos the raccoon away, finally aware of his youngest son's insane amount of superpowers. So it kind of looks like it sounds like a Jack, do you remember the little short film that they, like Jack,
I think so, yeah.
It was the short film that they had. It was Jack Attacks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I saw that in a theater. I can't remember which movie, but it was one of those, like, the Pixar short they kind of
Yep, it was Jack Attack. It came out in 2005. And it was of Jack getting dropped or left with a babysitter, and he pretty much like terrorizes the babysitter. So
I don't know about you. I personally really enjoyed The Incredibles a lot.
Oh, it was great. I have the video game.
I was so upset when I heard they weren't going to do, at least when it first came out, they weren't planning on doing a second one right away. That'll be definitely be a movie that I'll probably one of the many adults in the movie theater for that one that's there watching it. So
yeah, so it sounds like, but I don't know, they're like, because I even looked up on IMDb and it says Bob Parr, Mr. Incredible, is left to care for Jack while Helen is out saving the world. I feel like this may not be as good of a movie as the first one.
I definitely
simply because it's a very, 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 very simple storyline.
Right.
And if it's all about Jack, it might as well just be like Jack Attacks the movie or something like that.
Well, because the first movie was interesting, because it was a family of, if you will, misfit superheroes,
Right.
They were always trying to hide their powers and everything like that. So they were considered the weird ones in society, instead of, being kind of held up on a pedestal and being hailed as the hero. And
it kind of showed the collapse of superheroes.
Exactly, yes. I thought that was an interesting dynamic to play on, in a sense. But, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I personally like The Incredibles because of the characters, Mr. Incredible, of course, I guess being my favorite.
Right.
Just because he seems to be that guy that doesn't know his own strength, or at least kind of tries to keep himself in check to a certain extent.
Well, I love how they were like, how he was like really thin and fit, and then he shows that he's like really fat, and like he is in this little car.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites.
I know I enjoyed the scene. It was, I believe it was just for one of the preview trailers for it, but where he was he got called back to duty. He was trying to put on his super suit and he couldn't get the belt on.
Yeah.
For it, he gets in the spandex suit, puts the mask on, and then goes through the belt, and it's just.
So I'm pretty sure Samuel L. Jackson was the one that played. Lucas, the best friend in Frozone.
Yes.
And this was my favorite scene from the original one.
Honey!
What?
Where's my super suit?
What?
Where is my super suit?
Put it away.
Where?
Why do you need to know?
I need it!
Don't you think about running off to doing no daring do? We've been planning this dinner for 2 months.
The public is in danger!
My evening's in danger.
You tell me where my suit is, woman! We are talking about the greater good!
Greater good? I am your wife. I'm the greatest good you are ever gonna get.
I still love that. I'm the greatest good you will ever get. And then there's a picture of do you remember the girl, the short girl that I'm trying to remember what her name is. The one who does the design for the.
Oh, the
What is her
kinda
name?
oh gosh,
She she designed the super suit and all that.
I'm going to look.
Me too. I'm trying to remember. Like I literally just had it. Like I watched this video literally last night, and I'm trying to remember. I knew it was something weird. What was her name? This is gonna irritate the crap out of me. When you can't find some, like when you know like you know the
Is
name.
it Madame Savage?
No.
Why am I getting? I always thought the no capes was the funny. was a very funny scene.
Yeah. No capes.
No capes.
She's like, do you know what happened to this person? His cape got sucked into a frickin'. Haven't you ever noticed that Disney movies are very gory without being gory?
Yes. They
Is it like-
definitely have a lot of those dark undertones. I know. I think it was after the show last week we were talking about the ending of the Tarzan movie with the villain Clayton in that movie.
Yeah.
How neither. I mean, I spoiler alert if you haven't seen that movie
Well,
yet.
if they haven't seen it, I
But,
mean, they
I'd
need to.
say you're way out of date. But you know the very ending scene of Tarzan. If you don't mind, I'll just kind of give a little synopsis.
No, you're
but
good.
The bad guy Clayton, he's kind of your typical arrogant wealthy upper class
Edna.
hunter. Edna, that was
Edna Mode.
See, I don't know why I didn't get that.
Anyway, I'll finish my story after you
Sure.
explain that.
But with the very ending scene, it's if I remember correctly, Clayton is trying to eliminate or kill Tarzan at the end of the movie. So Tarzan destroys his firearm, his shotgun. So he's coming after him in a I think they're fighting in the trees and they
Yes.
fall into a bunch of vines and they're being suspended by these vines. So Clayton's trying to hack his way to Tarzan to kill him. And he ends up chopping some of the vines under his feet and then ends up getting one caught around his throat.
Hanging himself.
Falls
He
to his
pretty
death.
much hangs himself.
And kind of what we were saying earlier, as kids, we got the fact that he died because he had a vine around his neck. But I know Aaron and I were talking after the show last week, and we were saying, I never noticed that they actually have a silhouette of him after the fact. And I was like, that's kind of really dark if you think about it.
Well, yeah, if you pay attention, they'll be like and I remember this now that he said something. There's like almost like a picture of, or like I don't know, it's like he's looking at the trees or in the background or something. And if you look, you just see a silhouette. You see a string coming down and a silhouette of him and his head down and his body just.
Yep, kind of just hanging limp.
Yeah.
It's a very brief, flash of lightning. And that's you see it for maybe half a second. But of course, as an adult, you're watching like, whoa, that's kind of dark.
Yeah.
I know.
Like, man,
I
I
guess-
watched that as a kid.
Right. I didn't mean to steal your thunder because I know Tarzan's your favorite movie, but I know
It is fantastic.
My-
it is one of my favorite
my
movies.
absolute favorite Disney movie, and forgive me for being so cliche for this, but I absolutely love The Lion King.
It is pretty cliche. A lot of
Specifically
people.
the first one, but I know I'm sure
You didn't like the 2.5. Do you remember that?
Oh, honestly, I didn't really watch the second ones after it. I saw the first
Two
one. I liked
two
it.
wasn't bad. 2.5 was funny because it was from Timon and Pumbaa's perspective
Oh, no,
for the
I'm
entire
sorry.
movie.
I did see that one. The second movie I saw bits and pieces of. And I mean, I liked it, but I thought Scar was a great villain. He was really hard to top, but kind of what you were saying earlier about, being a dark ending, if you will. The Lion King, they don't show what happens to Scar in the very end of it. And again, spoiler alert, but I'm sure you should have seen it by now.
Right.
But he basically gets, as far as I know, he got, eaten by the hyenas, which is, kind of dark in itself. But of course, as you mentioned, it's like that kind of passive aggressive, dark ending, if you will. Then what is Beauty and the Beast? Doesn't Gaston end up falling from the top of the castle as well?
Yes,
plunging
yes,
to his death. It's
yes.
like, it's I
The
know
new
how-
one and the old one.
I know. Oh, and he does that same death in the new one.
I'm pretty sure.
Kept it consistent. Then I like that.
Well, the new one was very, very, very much like the old one,
Gotcha.
but there were parts that they changed that made it better.
Okay.
So it made it different that it was good.
Mhm.
So they changed it enough that it was good, but it was still enough like the original movie that
Well,
you're like,
it-
oh, I remember that as a kid. I remember that.
It's like with
And like you'll see
animation,
Chip Cup, you're like, oh my god.
it's like, with animation and live action, there's a lot, both are very, very versatile. And I think Disney's done great, with animated movies and whatnot. But, now that they own the Star Wars and Marvel franchise,
Right.
there's a lot they can do with the live action. But, there's just certain elements you can't exactly capture, as well as, in either or, like maybe emotions can be obviously better captured in live action. But yet I've seen some cartoons do it very well.
Yeah. Well, back to what I was saying. So there was this video that I saw on the website. So if you want to know, it was on BuzzFeed News. The link is probably the third in the description below. And there was a video, and it had a whole bunch of really famous stars from like just fashion stars, and they're like there was only one fashion designer that was ever famous, and they're all like, you see who's the girl that Heidi Klum, they say Heidi Klum. Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't until I wore one of her dress to the Emmys that it blah 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 blah. And then they're like Edna, like they're all talking about Edna, and so they're going on talking about how great she is, and I'm laughing my butt off, and they're just showing all pictures from the movies, and I'm laughing so hard. But it was funny. It was all these videos, and they're just talking about how it's just like they love. But you see like Zach Posen, Kendall Jenner, Rochelle Zoe, and like the other one that I mentioned. But it was just, I don't know. It was just something about it that was funny that made me laugh. So that is on there.
It's almost like those bit characters in movies sometimes absolutely make the movie.
Yes.
It's not.
Well, it's kind of like Olaf. Everybody loved Olaf.
Yeah.
He was thrown in there for kind of comic relief. Everybody knew that. It's kind of like the Minions in Despicable Me.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else. You've got
like a Lion King, Timon and Pumbaa.
Timon and Pumbaa
they
and Lion King.
Had, I don't know, maybe like 45 minutes of screen time. Fairly
Right.
minor characters got introduced towards the end of it, but
and it was they became so big that they made the 2.5 where it showed I think it was the first and the second movie from their perspective.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, that's fantastic.
It's genius.
Yeah, so it's just I'm super excited. They also did announce a Olaf's Frozen Adventure and Frozen 2.
It's exactly what you were just saying with the Timon and Pumbaa, the Lion King 2.5.
Right.
That's a lot of people. I actually fairly recently, within the past probably 7-8 months or so, watched Frozen myself.
Did you?
And I agree. I absolutely loved Olaf's character. I know my girlfriend and I, two adults, young adults, mind you, we're watching this movie. And we both enjoyed him. He was a great character, very funny comic relief, and he's just so lovable, So, and that's really what, people ask for when they watch these movies, and that's why I enjoy a lot of Disney and Pixar movies is, because it's animated, it's a fictional world, but I don't want to say exactly relatable, but they're such a just a lovable character, the way they come off, and whether or not they have quirks or something like that, it's something you can kind of make some kind of slight connection to, and that's just cool. I think a lot of movies nowadays seem to lack that, especially some kids movies that come out, but at the same time, that's just kind of, like me, I say I like the classics, a lot of the
Right.
Disney movies that were made before I was even born. I seem to enjoy those ones quite a bit, but it's just, you can do it nowadays if you just make a lovable, likable character, and people will appreciate you more for that.
Yeah, I'm just, yeah, I really, I think the older ones are really good.
Yeah. Well, kind of like what you're saying, like with bit characters kind of making the movies, is like, I was thinking too, Hunchback of Notre Dame, the gargoyles.
Yeah.
Or even what was the jester in that movie? I think his name's Clopin.
Yeah.
The kind of the narrator of the story.
Right.
Him and the gargoyles, they're really, really minor characters. But I remember as a kid, I'd usually be laughing or smiling, during their scenes because they'd be doing something silly, something memorable. So they kind of characters like that almost, the supporting roles really do make the.
Well, and sometimes they do like Minions. They made an entire movie about Minions because they became so famous.
Oh yeah. Well, that's just the thing too. Is like they're background guys, but they're so lovable. Because they're always doing something goofy. Whether you're watching Despicable Me or, of course, their movie, obviously they have the spotlight, but they're like those kind of those unloved.
Well, what about like Pain
characters.
and Panic from Hercules? They were the two,
Oh.
like the orange, or they were red and blue, and literally one of them was always in pain, and one of them
they
was always
were
panicking.
Hades kind of minions, if you will, right?
Yeah.